Wow, this sure is different from Chicago.
And I'm not the only one who's thought that. You know who else must have thought that?
A very young Walter Elias Disney.
We're back at Walt Disney's original happy place.
This was old Elias Disney, Walt Disney's father's farm in Marceline, Missouri. And look right here, they've recreated the barn.
Walt recreated his father's barn in his backyard in Los Angeles because he loved this place so much.
And then of course, in the 21st century, Disney fans recreated the barn again here on the original property.
We've been here before, but it's Allie's first time.
What do you think, Allie?
I like it, it's nice.
Walt Disney's original happy place. Every fan of Walt Disney needs to come here at least once.
We just saw Walt Disney's birthplace in Chicago, where he lived until he was 5 years old in a bustling, very busy, very crowded, very urban city environment.
But old strict Elias was noticing that Chicago was becoming more and more crime-ridden and decided his boys needed a little bit of the old country life.
Elias's older boys, who were raised in the city, didn't like coming out here very much. In fact, the two oldest split right away. They did not want to have anything to do with working on a farm.
But for the tender young Walt Disney, this was like coming to paradise.
He had so much room for activities.
He could wander through the fields and trees. They said he used to ride the pigs.
And this is where he would spend his days dreaming and learning to draw.
This really is where the legend of Walt Disney begins.
Like I said, every Disney fan needs to come here at least once if they can. And hundreds have. Let me show you what I mean.
Here we are, inside the barn, and look at that, hundreds, maybe thousands of signatures and messages from Walt's fans.
And I can't get enough of this. Every time I come here, I look at this floor. Will you marry me? Yes! She said yes! Ho ho!
There's this great little wooden book in here about Walt Disney's happy place. Look, there's his version of the barn where he built and maintained his miniature trains at his home in Los Angeles.
Then it talks all about the construction of this place and how many dedicated volunteers put their time, energy, and money into this.
But I think the greatest tribute to Walt are all of these messages. Look at that, the Disneyland Resort even got in on the act.
I believe they finished the barn in 2001, which makes it 100 years after Walt Disney was born.
Celebrating 100 years of Disneyana.
Look at that, there is my signature from the last time I was here. Justin Scard and the Sometimes Mob. That's all of you.
Of course, my friend Adam the Woo came by
and left a little tag of his own right there. See that ATW?
They actually invite you to do that. Sign the walls, leave a message for Walt.
Just inside the barn only. Please no decorating the outside, folks.
Every time I come in here, I start to get emotional.
Reading all the tributes to Walt Disney. The man and his work meant a lot to a lot of people. Look at this. 70-year cast members.
Thank you for making the happiest place in the world. Some of them say, Walt Disney, you saved my childhood. Look at this one here. They've even included Roy, which is important.
Because obviously Roy Disney had a lot to do with it too. And Roy was here on the farm, but he was 13, I believe, when he moved here, which means he had to work on the farm. The barn would have had a whole different significance to Roy.
Okay, this one's funny. I got arrested coming to Marceline. You're still my hero.
That's a good one. Allie, you should sign right up here. Right on the beam.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Just reach. You can do it.
There you go. Up on the barrel. You can do it.
Make sure you spell it right. A-L-L-Y. Wouldn't want you to spell your own name wrong. That would be embarrassing.
There you go. Look at that. Signing your name.
Right next to me and Adam the Woo.
You did it. Walt's happy place.
You know, Allie and I met at Disneyland, so if it wasn't for Walt Disney, we would never have met, and our future children would have never been born, and we would have never got married and bought that house in Aspen that fell over because it was so cheap.
Sorry, I don't know where I was going with that. I don't want to live in Aspen.
All right, I think it's time that we left the barn. Mostly because I just noticed this giant snake skin hanging here.
Oh, that's a good one. And there's a weird noise coming from right up there.
Can snakes climb barns?
Hello? Snake? Are any snakes in there?
Snakes. Snakes. I don't know no snakes.
Sounds familiar.
Wow, this is such a beautiful place. No offense to Chi-Town, but it's a lot more
scenic than Chicago, that's for sure.
Look at this. This would be paradise for a small boy.
Well, at least it was until they invented the Game Boy.
Look at this. According to this sign, Walt Disney once charged admission to get into that barn to see the barn circus. And it was the goat, the pig, and the family dog and cat dressed in his little sister's doll clothes.
His mom made him return people's money.
It's okay though. Walt built bigger and better attractions later.
Wow, it's so much prettier out here this time than it was the last time I was here. Last time, it was storming, it was gray.
Today, it could not be more beautiful, even though it's very hot and humid, and there are a lot of bugs flying around. You love bugs.
Allie was just with me for a couple of days. She's got to fly home from St. Louis in just a little bit.
But I knew if we were anywhere near, she had to come and see Walt Disney's boyhood home.
Now, Walt Disney returned to Marceline as an older gentleman.
And he posed for a very famous photo with this tree, the one that's fallen down here. You can still see just a few pieces of the trunk.
He identified this as his dreaming tree, a place where he would come, lean up against this giant tree, and draw pictures and dream.
I guess if you want to be good at something, you've got to practice. And we all know that Walt Disney was good at dreaming.
Walt's original dreaming tree may be dead and now slowly returning to the earth.
But this tree right in front of us is a sapling planted from the original. This is the son of the dreaming tree.
It was planted with soil from the Magic Kingdom and water from the rivers of America.
So Walt Disney's dreams came full circle.
Walt's dreaming tree and barn are open to the public. You just park on the side of the road up here
and take a short walk along this beautiful path to get there.
That is pretty awesome. There's no admission charge to go and see that. It's just simply sitting on the back of someone's property, open to the world to visit. But what a lot of people miss when they come out here is that the house in front of the property, which is now a very private residence and not open to visitors, is partially the original Disney home in Marceline. They don't want people going up to their door and knocking, which I fully understand. Which makes it even more bangarang that they let them build that barn back there and let all those visitors traipse through the woods behind their home. It's amazing to think that little Walt Disney lived right there in this front portion of the house. Of course, it's heavily modified, but that little house right there, the nearest part to us, that was the Disney farmhouse. This is where Walt Disney grew up. That's pretty amazing. A very significant place to young Walt Disney and to his fans. But perhaps a more significant place to us Disneyland fans is just down the road. Welcome to the little town of Marceline, Missouri. Walt Disney's boyhood hometown. A place that he loved so much, that lived so vividly in his memory, that it inspired the creation of Main Street, USA. If Walt Disney had had his way, Main Street would have been a copy of Marceline. Unfortunately, by the time Disneyland was being planned in the 1950s, this old railroad town looked nothing like the Marceline of Walt's memory. So a lot of the buildings you see on Main Street, USA today were inspired by places like Fort Collins, Colorado, and other old turn-of-the-century places that stayed a little more intact than Marceline did. But still, this is it. This is Walt Disney's original Main Street, USA. Walt Disney loved this old railroad town. Trains passing through Marceline began Walt's lifelong love of trains, and right there in the Uptown Theater, Walt and Roy came back in later life to screen their movie, The Great Locomotive Chase. Imagine that, a Hollywood movie premiere right here in Marceline. They've been restoring this theater for a while, and every time I've come here, the theater has been closed, still working on it, but it looks like they've made a lot of progress since last year, because it seems like they're screening movies here again. Oh yeah, wow, what a transformation. Walt and Roy Disney were right here, taking people's tickets, welcoming them to a movie. Must be pretty crazy and pretty good to come back to the town where you were a little boy that could barely afford to go see a play or a movie and get to put on a show like that for all the hometown folk. Now, whenever Walt Disney did have a chance to come back to Marceline, he liked to come by train. As a matter of fact, he and Roy came back to this very train depot. So it makes perfect sense that that depot would later become the Walt Disney Hometown Museum. I got to visit a few years ago, but I heard there were a lot of changes, and last year when I came, farm. I was excited to go inside, but it was closed on Mondays. Is it Monday today?
No.
Oh, thank goodness. Finally, I'm going back inside.
Oh wow, it's just as awesome as I remember.
Look at this. Here's Walt Disney's old school desk.
There are at least 2 desks he used at the elementary school in Marceline.
One of which I think is at Disney World, and the other one is right here.
And if you look closely at the top, you'll notice that young Walt Disney indulged in a little vandalism.
You ever scratch your name in the school desk, Allie?
No.
I'm gonna not lie. I might have done that, but we can't confirm.
We can, however, 100% confirm that Walt carved his name into these because he came back to the school and pointed it out for everyone to see. Look how proud he was of himself.
Walt and Roy also brought the modern Walt Disney Elementary School in town.
A Disneyland flag to fly over the school, the only other place besides Disneyland that gets to do that, as well as custom themed playground equipment and having the Disney artists decorate the school. It's still decorated like that, actually. Isn't that awesome? Too bad it's summer vacation.
Walt's love for Marceline didn't stop there. He also decided that in addition to Disney art and Disney playground equipment, the kids of Marceline deserved a Disney ride.
And so when they took the Midget Autopia out of Disneyland, they donated it to Marceline. Look at that. See the old Midget Autopia right next to Storybook Land? They later moved all the cars here and designed a track in the local city park,
Which of course is known as the Walt Disney Municipal Park.
and also contains the Walt Disney Pool. Look at that. A Disneyland ride donated to a small town park.
That's amazing. What a piece of history.
A few years ago, I went to see what was left of the track, and it was still out there at the park.
And I heard they have plans to restore all of these vehicles and once again
Operate the Midget Autopia, I believe, right here near the museum.
I don't think that's happening yet, but when it does, I am gonna come back here.
I highly doubt I would fit in the cars, but you might fit. You might fit. Wow, look at this. This is all different. I don't remember there being so many Disney collectibles in here. Oh, they have one of the Disneyland Hotel Jungle Cruise boats.
I love those things. Actually, someone said they're building me one. We'll see.
This stuff is all pretty amazing.
But what I really love about this museum
Is all the information about Walt Disney's family.
this old radio is playing Walt Disney's parents.
Celebrating their anniversary. You can hear Walt talking to his folks. That's amazing. There's old Elias Disney right there and some of his carpentry tools.
You can read family letters,
See family photos and learn a little bit more about the other Disneys.
such as Herbert and Ray Disney.
Hey, it's me, Ray Disney. Want to buy some insurance?
Ray liked to ride his bicycle around. He never learned to drive a car. He liked to smoke cigars and sell insurance.
And Herbert over here, no matter how much Walt and Roy tried, didn't want to work for the company. He just liked being a mailman. It wasn't just Walt that loved this town. His little sister, it wasn't just Walt that loved Marceline. His little sister Ruth also grew up here.
So all these family letters and old rare family photos,
Were donated to the museum by her.
which gives you a really interesting look at the Disney family.
Walt's sister wasn't a big fan of crowds, so when Disneyland opened, he sent her the money for this new TV so she could watch the opening ceremonies.
Look, here she is, Ruth Disney right there. Her and Walt are standing on the porch of that house in Chicago we were just at.
She never made it to LA. She became a Portland, Oregon girl.
But this was Walt's best friend growing up. We always hear about Walt and Roy.
And it's true, they were the business partners. But Walt and Ruth, they were the childhood hijinks partners. Look at that. Walt Disney's letter to his sister talking about how Disneyland is going to be opening pretty soon, he hopes. And there's his signature.
That's not the only one. There's tons of them over here.
If you take the time to read them, there's a lot of love in these letters. Here's one from Walt's mom about how Walter took them to church.
Aw, Walter was a good boy.
And look at those amazing old photos. I've never seen those anywhere else before. This one might be my new favorite picture of Walt Disney. Walter! Or how about that one of Walt Disney on the right there in France with his friend Russell. And there's Walt and Ruth and Roy in the center there with their wives in front of the Disney Brothers studio on Kingswell Avenue in LA.
Must have been pretty exciting to visit your brothers in Hollywood who are running a new studio. That's pretty cool.
Then there's Roy, the mostly silent partner. That guy had just as much to do with getting Disneyland built as Walt did.
Someday I'd like to dive a little deeper into Roy's story.
Oh, I'm so happy it wasn't a Monday. What do you think, Allie? You like this museum?
Yeah, it's cute.
I love that they called him Walter. I love that every letter refers to Walter.
I never think of Walt as a Walter.
Okay, more fun awaits up these stairs. Oh, that's cool. Oh, Hidden Mickey.
Did you see it? It's hidden Mickey. Hidden Mickey.
Oh, wow. Oh, I love this. There's a video in here now. The man behind the myth, Walt's daughter, talking about Walt.
They've changed the upstairs a lot since the last time I was in here. That room used to have a big model of Disneyland.
Oh, wow. I think they still have it over there, but wow, look at all of this.
Look, it's Walt's front porch.
This porch pays tribute to a story that Ruth liked to tell.
One day Walt decided that he wanted to draw on the side of the house. We'll just use tar. We can wipe it off later.
Did not go over well with his dad.
Matter of fact, it stayed on the house till they moved. Walt had a way of decorating.
How about this? Now there's a recreation of Walt Disney's school days up here.
Now listen here, children. Today we're going to learn about Walt Disney. It all started with a mouse, and then Walt broke my chalk.
This teacher is so boring. Oh, hey. You're pretty cute. What's your phone number? We should hold hands.
Cut it out, you two! No flirting!
Sorry.
Here are the pieces of that model I was telling you about. Last time I saw it, it was all sort of set up to look like a long main street.
It was pretty impressive. Took up that whole room back there.
But it's kind of nice to see this now. And there's also little signs right there talking about actual buildings in Marceline.
Like there was an actual opera house that inspired the opera house at Disneyland.
Murray's department store was the inspiration for the Emporium.
It's pretty cool.
I love models like this. I always wish that I had that skill.
Fine detail work is not my forte, sadly.
But someday I'm gonna meet someone who builds models.
Then I could hire them to fill my house with Millennium Falcon models and Disney Castle models and hot models like this one.
Look at this. They have a little setup of the Pessman Rubin Commercial Art Studio.
One of Walt's early jobs working for an advertiser with none other than UB Iwerks.
Apparently they shared this very light table to trace some of their early animations.
Want to touch? Sign says no touching. Want to touch? Don't touch.
Pretty awesome, huh? Not what you'd expect when you roll into a town this small. You wouldn't think that there's so much amazing stuff.
But if I've learned anything from traveling around and visiting numerous small towns,
It's to never underestimate a small town museum.
the towns may be small, but usually the people have a lot of heart.
And just like Walt Disney, when they put their minds to it, they can accomplish anything. Look at this. Here's a sketch of an attraction that Walt Disney wanted to build in Marceline. He thought about using his fame to help his hometown by building a Marceline project.
And he wanted to do it on the farm his father owned.
Look at that. He said, regardless of the fact that I was born in Chicago, I feel that my roots are in the great state of Missouri and that I am a Missourian in every sense of the word.
Maybe that's why I love coming to small towns where my heroes had their roots, because I didn't come from a small town. I didn't have the small town memories.
But for some reason, I have a deep love and longing for that type of life. Maybe someday I'll be able to afford a house in a small town.
And in between my travels and adventures, I'll have somewhere to settle down.
Can you picture it, Allie? Someday we'll be sitting on the front porch watching the fireflies, maybe watching the river go by or the trains coming through. Hopefully there won't be an air conditioning vent on our front porch like this because it's a little noisy.
Although it does feel pretty good.
Man, I love what they've done with the place.
It's like a complete and total transformation up here.
If you ever come to Missouri, this is a must-do.
Marceline, Missouri. Just don't come on a Monday like I did last year when it's closed.
All right, well, the museum is closing up shop now, so I guess it's pumpkin time.
That's a super cool, super secret Cinderella way of saying our time is up.
Now we'll just take a stroll through E.P. Ripley Park, the very same park young Walt Disney and family used to watch band concerts in, and of course named for the same Santa Fe Railroad personality as the Disneyland train, and then back out to Kansas Avenue, aka Main Street, USA. There may not be a castle at the end of this main street, but this small town is still full of charm, and they've really managed to capture the Disney spirit and our hearts. All right, gang, now it's time to say goodbye to all our Marceline. M-A-R-C.
See you real soon.
C-E-L-I-N-E, Marceline. Make sure to check the links down below in the description. Subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you all a little later. Bye-bye. It's the original teacups! It's the original teacups! Oh, I remember this being way more fun when I was smaller! Yeah, very merry on birthday to you! Oh!
I'm okay. Mostly.